It was a rainy, cold evening, light drizzles falling on the crowded streets of New York. The yellow taxi's lights were shimmering on the wet roads, and people were rushing quickly into their own work. In this crowd, an ordinary delivery boy was riding a bicycle, carrying packets from a restaurant. His name was Ethan Carter. Brown hair, blue eyes, a slight beard, and a simple blue jacket. At first glance, anyone would just think of him as an ordinary delivery boy, but the truth was something else. Ethan was actually the CEO of Carter Enterprises, the owner of America's largest retail and technology company. A company worth billions of dollars, thousands of employees. But one question always pricked Ethan's mind. Is there anyone in the world who could love me without my money and power? Between corporate meetings, Mercedes cars, and private jets, Ethan often felt lonely. He knew that most people were impressed not by who he was, but by his name and money. That very thought pushed him to do this test to hide his identity and work like a delivery boy. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, in a cafe, a girl was bent over her laptop screen. Her name was Isabella Brown, 26 years old, long brown hair, light hazel eyes, and a simple smile on her face. She was a freelance graphic designer, and after her studies, she was trying to establish herself in this new city. Amid the glitter of the city, she was fighting to keep her dreams alive. Her life was not easy: expensive rent, work pressure, and sometimes even having to manage the budget for food. Yet there was a courage inside her, a kindness which everyone could feel. That evening, Isabella was preparing designs for her clients, when she saw outside a delivery boy coming towards the cafe drenched in rain. It was Ethan. Ethan opened the cafe door, and the cold breeze came inside from his wet clothes. Isabella glanced lightly at him, and then got back to her work. Ethan went to the counter, handed the packet, and then stood near a table. At that very moment, there was a strange commotion inside the cafe. A rich businessman was sitting with his friends. Staring at Ethan, he said, "Hey, delivery boy, what are you doing standing here? Get out." His tone was mocking. Ethan didn't want to say anything, quietly started leaving, but then Isabella spoke up. "Excuse me, what's your problem?" "He's just doing his job." Her voice had both anger and kindness. The whole cafe went silent. Ethan looked at Isabella properly for the first time. There was that honesty in her eyes which Ethan hadn't seen for years. Isabella called Ethan to her. "Hey, you're soaked. Sit here for a minute, I'll get you some coffee." Ethan saw this kindness from a stranger for the first time. He smiled and softly said, "Thanks, I'm fine." But Isabella ordered a cup of hot coffee from the waiter and placed it in front of Ethan. Holding the coffee, Ethan said lightly, "No one's this kind these days." Isabella smiled. "Everyone's just busy." But kindness costs nothing. A strange feeling arose in Ethan's heart. He thought, could she be the one who would accept me without my identity? At that moment, Isabella's phone rang.
Oh.
She got up and went outside. Ethan watched her leaving and felt something in his heart. The rain had become heavy. Isabella was talking on the phone outside. Her voice had tension. Ethan looked through the glass. She was talking to her landlord about the rent. "Please give me some more time. I'll pay next week." "Please," she was saying. Ethan's heart filled up. He said to himself, this girl is fighting so many battles, yet she's kind to strangers like me. That night, Ethan left the cafe, but Isabella's image kept revolving in his mind. The next day, too, Ethan made a delivery in the same area, the same cafe. Isabella was there again. This time, seeing Ethan, she smiled and said, "Hey, delivery boy." Ethan laughed. "Hi, designer girl." In this way, their light-hearted talks began. Isabella sometimes tipped him, sometimes just laughed. Ethan slowly started liking Isabella's simplicity and honesty. But Ethan's heart was still in dilemma. If he told the truth about who he really was, would Isabella change? One evening, Ethan gathered courage and asked Isabella, "You're always here working. Don't you get tired?" Isabella sighed lightly. "I do. But dreams don't build themselves, right?" There was that passion in her eyes which Ethan had lost. Slowly, the friendship between Ethan and Isabella started growing. Ethan often came to the cafe on some excuse, sometimes to deliver, sometimes to pick up. Isabella sometimes showed her drawings. Ethan praised her creativity. But the suspense began when Ethan came to know some things about Isabella, which he had never even thought of. He heard that Isabella was about to get a big project from a company, and that company was a subsidiary of Carter Enterprises, meaning his own company. Many questions started arising in Ethan's mind. Should he give Isabella this chance without telling her that he was the CEO? Or should he tell her the truth? And from here, the real turning point of the story begins. It was the cold morning after the rain. There was light sunshine on the streets of New York, and Ethan was standing outside the same cafe with his delivery bicycle. There was some restlessness in his eyes. What he had learned about Isabella last night had taken away his sleep. Nova Designs, the biggest subsidiary of Carter Enterprises, gave big opportunities to freelance designers like Isabella. Ethan knew that for Isabella, this project could change her life. But if he used the CEO's name to get her this opportunity, then it would make his test useless. He saw Isabella sitting by the window. She was again bent over her laptop the same way. Hair scattered, tiredness in her eyes, but a slight smile on her lips. Ethan stepped inside. "Good morning, designer girl," he said, lightly joking. Isabella lifted her head and smiled. "Good morning, delivery boy." Ethan sat in front of her. "You look tired," he said. Isabella said softly, "Late-night deadlines. Clients don't sleep." Ethan ordered a cup of coffee for her. Isabella looked at Ethan closely for the first time. "You're always so calm. Don't you have a family?" "Friends." Ethan lied a little. "Family's far away." "Friends. Busy with their lives." Isabella nodded lightly. "Same." There was a few seconds of silence between them. Ethan's heart wanted to say, "I'm not just a delivery boy." But he stopped himself. Suddenly, Isabella's phone rang. She picked up the call and her voice changed. "Yes, sir. I've submitted the designs. Please consider my proposal. It's really important." Ethan understood that Isabella was talking to Nova Designs HR, meaning people from his own company. As soon as Isabella hung up the phone, Ethan asked, "Everything okay?" Isabella said with a light smile, "Just trying for a big project. If I get it, life will be easier." "But," Ethan asked, "but what?" Isabella shrugged lightly. "They don't usually give work to freelancers. Big names get big projects, right?" Ethan felt like someone had hit his heart. He said softly, "Maybe they'll see your talent." Isabella said, with hope in her eyes, "Maybe." That day, Ethan went back to his apartment. He looked at himself in the mirror. There stood CEO Ethan Carter, expensive suit, watch, and pride. And inside him was delivery boy Ethan Carter, who wanted a true relationship with Isabella. At night, he went to his office. On the whole floor, there was only security. Ethan sat in his cabin, looking at Isabella's file. In his company, HR had rejected Isabella's project. Reason: not enough experience. Ethan's eyes became moist. "Why does the world always reject people like her?" he said to himself. But he couldn't do anything directly, otherwise his test would break. The next day, Ethan said to Isabella, "If you don't mind, can I see your work?" Isabella laughed. "Why? You planning to start a design company?" Ethan said, "Maybe." Isabella placed her laptop in front of Ethan. In it were her design's branding, art logo. Hard work and creativity were visible in every design. Ethan was mesmerized. "Wow, you're amazing," he said. Isabella smiled. "Thanks." "But clients don't think so," Ethan said lightly. "They will." That day, Ethan and Isabella talked for a long time. They shared their childhoods, dreams, fears. Isabella told that her mother lives in a small town. She is struggling alone in New York. Ethan just listened. Slowly, Ethan started becoming a part of Isabella's life. Isabella showed him her sketches, sometimes had lunch with him. Ethan sometimes dropped her home on his bicycle. But the suspense increased when someone told Isabella that Carter Enterprises' CEO was in the city, and he himself was doing a hidden test. Isabella understood this as a joke and laughed. "Rich people and their weird games," she said to Ethan. There was a light smile on Ethan's face, but his heart trembled inside. One night, Isabella suddenly got a notice from her landlord. "Pay rent or leave," she cried. Ethan saw what happened. Isabella said, "I don't know what to do. I'm already behind on bills." Ethan said, "You can stay with me. I have a spare room." Isabella looked into his eyes. "You're kind, but I don't even know you." Ethan smiled lightly. "Sometimes strangers are safer than friends." Isabella thought for a moment. "Okay, just for a few days," she said. For the first time, Isabella went to Ethan's apartment. She saw a simple, small-room apartment. She thought Ethan really was an ordinary delivery boy. But the suits and watches that were in Ethan's cupboard, he kept hidden. At night, Isabella slept, but Ethan stayed awake worrying about her. A week passed like this. Closeness between Isabella and Ethan began to grow. Isabella held Ethan's hand and said, "You're not like others. You actually listen." Ethan lightly pressed her hand. Maybe because you're not like others either, but Ethan knew that the truth had to come out one day. One evening, Isabella turned on the TV. On the news channel it was running. Carter Enterprises CEO Ethan Carter spotted at company gala. On the screen were Ethan's picture suit, tie, and security. Isabella's heart almost stopped. She looked at Ethan. "That's you." Her voice trembled. Ethan said nothing. Isabella said again, "That's you. You're Ethan Carter, the billionaire CEO." Ethan nodded slowly, "Yes." Isabella stepped back. "You lied to me? All this time you lied?" Ethan's words got stuck in his throat. "I wanted to know. Who would care for me without money, without name?" There were tears in Isabella's eyes. "So I was just your experiment?" Ethan said. "No. It started as a test. But it's not a test anymore." Isabella shook off his hand. "I don't care. You played with my trust." She opened the door and went out. Ethan stood there. It had started raining again. Ethan stood by the window watching her leave. There was a storm inside him. He had himself broken his most precious relationship. The raindrops were shining like pearls on New York's concrete streets. In the silence of the night, Ethan was looking outside from his apartment window. There was no sleep in his eyes, only regret. That whole test, that mask, that lie. Everything was ruined in one blow. The fragrance of Isabella's presence was still left in his room, the pages of her sketchbook, the smell of her hair, the echo of her laughter. Ethan placed his hand on his chest and said softly, "Why did I think she wouldn't find out? Why didn't I tell her earlier?" On the other side, Isabella had returned to her old small room. She looked at her sketchbook in front of her. On every page, memories of moments spent with Ethan seemed hidden. She was saying to herself, "I trusted him, and he used me." Rich people always play with poor people's feelings. But somewhere inside her, a voice was saying, Adin had also helped her, had also understood her, had also laughed truly with her. Was all of this a lie? Both wanted to forget each other, but every little thing reminded them. In Ethan's office, Isabella's designs were still lying. In every meeting, in every file, he saw that same face. Isabella remembered Ethan's words with every new client, "They will see your talent." 3 weeks passed. Ethan tried to contact Isabella's mail message, but Isabella didn't reply. One day, Isabella got an email from Nova Designs. "Your proposal has been reconsidered. Please come for a presentation next week." She read it and was shocked. "Why now?" she said to herself. Actually, it was Ethan, who, without telling his name, said to HR, "Reevaluate this project on merit." He hid his influence just to give Isabella her right. But Isabella didn't know this. On the day of the presentation, Isabella was nervous. She had prepared her sketches, her designs, everything. As soon as she stepped into the building of Nova Designs, she remembered Ethan's name on every wall, every logo. She entered the conference room. 5 people were sitting in front of her. None of them was Ethan. She presented her designs. Behind every design was her story, hard work, dreams, hopes. The panel listened to her carefully. In the end, one of them said, "We're impressed. We'll get back to you soon." Isabella came out. There was a slight hope in her heart, but Ethan's memories were eating her up. That night, Isabella sat in her small room and made a sketch of Ethan. There was no anger in her eyes. Only one question: was any of it real? On the other side, Ethan was sitting late night in his office, looking at the sketch of Isabella that she had once gifted him, a small cafe, in which Ethan and Isabella were sitting. He said to himself, "She deserves to know the truth, not the test, not the games. Just the truth." He wrote a letter to Isabella. "I'm sorry I never wanted to hurt you. You changed me. So the test was stupid. I just wanted to see if someone could love me without my name. I failed. But I've always been honest about my feelings for you." He sent the letter, but Isabella quietly read it and put it away. She didn't reply. Nova Designs called Isabella. "Congratulations, you've got the project." Isabella was shocked. She said, "Thank you." She was sitting in her room thinking, did Ethan do this? Or is this really my work? She composed herself. No, this is my work. I earned this. She started working on the project. Ethan kept watching her progress from afar. He didn't go to her office, didn't call her. 2 months passed. Isabella's life began to change. Her work was now on big billboards. Her name started spreading in the industry. But her heart was empty. Ethan also took a big decision in his life. He changed his company's CSR policy. Now poor and talented freelancers would get direct opportunities. He said in the media, talent has no address. We will open doors for everyone. But behind every statement was Ethan's memory of Isabella. One day, an invoice of her new project came to Isabella's office. At the bottom was Carter Enterprises' logo. She saw it, and her eyes became moist. Why can't I hate him? She said to herself. That same evening, Isabella got an invite for an event of Carter Enterprises. Special guest, Isabella Brown. She was in dilemma. Should I go? Should I face him? She wrote in her diary. I don't know what I feel for him anymore. Anger, love, both. On the day of the event, Isabella wore a simple but beautiful dress. Her hair was open, and in her eyes was a slight nervousness. She entered the glassy building of Carter Enterprises. People were recognizing her. That's Isabella Brown. It's a new design star. Ethan was on stage in a suit, confident, but eyes searching for someone. His eyes fell on Isabella. For a moment, everything stopped. Ethan held the mic and said, Today, we celebrate not just business, but people who make it meaningful. His voice trembled, but he composed himself. One of them is here tonight. She taught me kindness. She taught me humility. She taught me what real talent is. Please welcome Isabella Brown. Applause echoed in the whole hall. Isabella came on stage. Ethan looked at her, and his eyes were apology, love, and respect all together. Isabella held the mic. Her voice was steady. Thank you for this honor. But success is never about someone giving you a chance. It's about believing in yourself when no one else does. Applause echoed again. Isabella got down from the stage. Ethan went after her. Isabella, please. His voice was like a whisper. Isabella looked at him. I'm proud of what you're doing, but I'm not sure I can trust you again. Ethan said softly, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know you changed me. Everything you have now is yours. Not my favor. Yours. Isabella's eyes became moist. She just nodded and went away. Ethan stood there, a slight smile on his lips, but emptiness in his eyes. A winter morning in New York. Light snow was falling. Isabella was sitting in her new studio, the walls with posters of her designs, folders of contracts, and in one corner, that same old sketchbook, in which she had drawn the moments spent with Ethan. Her company had now been built. Her name was now echoing in the industry. But there was an emptiness in her heart. Sometimes she would look at the snow falling outside the window and think, why do I still think of him? On the other side, Ethan was sitting in his office. His company was now going in a new direction. Even being the CEO of billions, he now met freelancers, poor students, and small designers every week. What he had learned from Isabella had changed his entire life. One day, Ethan's PA said, Sir, Isabella Brown is speaking at a charity gala next week. Ethan just nodded. I know. He thought I won't go. She deserves her space. But fate had another plan. On the day of the gala, Isabella gave a speech on stage. Success is not a destination. It's a journey. I used to think rich people only play games. I met someone who taught me even the powerful can learn humility. Even they can change. There was silence in the whole hall. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. She saw Ethan in the crowd. Ethan was standing at the back, without a suit and tie, just in a simple coat. His eyes were lowered. After the gala, Isabella went outside. Snow was slowly falling. Ethan was standing near the door. He said, Congratulations. Your speech was amazing. Isabella looked at him. You're still the same? He listened quietly. Ethan smiled lightly. I've learned too. A few seconds of silence. Ethan said, I came to say goodbye. I'm leaving for our new branch in Europe. Isabella looked into his eyes for a moment. There was no arrogance there now, just truth. Goodbye, she asked softly. Ethan nodded. You've built your own empire. You don't need me. Isabella's lips trembled. You really think it was about need? Ethan said nothing. Isabella took a deep breath. When you lied to me, it broke me. But when you walked away without forcing me, it healed me, gave me my dignity back, and that's why I can forgive you now." Ethan looked up. For the first time there was a shine in his eyes. "You forgive me?" Isabella smiled. "Yes, because you're not the man who started that stupid test. You're the man who changed because of it." A faint smile came on Ethan's lips. He said softly, "And you're not just the girl who saved a delivery boy. You're the woman who saved a CEO's soul." Snow kept falling between them. Ethan gently held her hand. "I love you, Isabella." Isabella looked into his eyes. "I love you too, Ethan, but this time, no lies, no tests." Ethan nodded. No lies, no tests. Both were standing in the snow. Their hands were in each other's. A few months later, Isabella's design company became the official partner of Carter Enterprises. Ethan went to her studio and launched a creative scholarship for small children. Together, they started a new initiative, True Talent Program, where every poor designer, artist, or student gets opportunities without any recommendation. The power couple with a purpose. But for Ethan and Isabella, this was just their shared dream. A year later, the same cafe, where this story had begun. Light drizzle was falling. Ethan and Isabella were sitting at the same table. Ethan said, laughing, "Do you remember the first coffee?" Isabella smiled and said, "Kindness costs nothing." Ethan held her hand. "It changes everything." Both laughed, even between cameras, media, money, and big events. The same simplicity, the same truth remained between them. Their story had now become an inspiration, not just for the business world, but for every person who thinks that trust and love are only the games of the rich. Isabella looked at Ethan and said, "We built something real." Ethan replied, "And we'll keep building it together." Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside, the relationship that had been built between them was now forever, without any test, without any mask, just true. A person's real form is not known by his money or position, but by his heart. True love and trust blossom only when both people stand before each other without masks. Ethan and Isabella proved that change is possible for everyone, whether he is a CEO or a struggler. Friends, if this story has touched your heart, then definitely share it with others. Like, share, and comment, and yes, do not forget to subscribe to the channel to hear more such heart-touching stories. Your one small click gives us the strength to create more such stories.